Welcome to the Giving Nook, where nonprofit leaders, fundraisers, foundations, and philanthropists come to talk all things giving and impact.
We're your guest hosts. I'm Katie Lord.
And I'm Chris Stibbs.
Your nonprofit powerhouses, fundraising strategists, and your go-to guides for tips, tricks, and real talk about what it actually takes to create meaningful change in the sector.
Between the two of us, we've worked across every corner of the sector, from throwing top-notch events to building donor relationships that last. And now we're pulling back the curtain to share what we've learned.
Whether you're in the fundraising trenches, leading a nonprofit, or just curious about how to give more intentionally, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, my friends. Okay, I'm really excited to talk about this today because Katie is a goddess when it comes to this, and that is affinity groups. Our friends at Big Brothers Big Sisters are just, when it comes to affinity groups. So I can't wait to talk to you about this.
Well, thank you. So, okay, you might ask what a donor affinity group is. So I'm going to just start off with like quick definition here. So a donor affinity group is different than a giving circle, right? So a giving circle is a group of people that come together, not related to an organization or a cause. And then they raise money, give money, and then decide to give the money out to certain nonprofits that are focusing on projects that they're interested in. A donor affinity group is actually kind of owned by the nonprofit, if you will. And so the money raised is going towards specific things for the nonprofit that are needed and to achieve certain goals with that nonprofit. But they are really run for that one nonprofit. They're not granting money to other nonprofits. They're giving to that nonprofit. And I will say, like, I can geek out to this, so I will try not to overwhelm everyone. But, one thing that I do want to say when we think of donor affinity groups, Chris, where does your mind immediately go?
All over the place.
Right. The one that I will say everyone goes to, though, that is really
I know
hard.
What it is. Young professionals.
Young professionals group. Why do we go to young professionals? Okay, guys, there are so many donor affinity groups that you can have outside of young professionals. So while you might want to have a young professionals group, the first thing when you think of that is a donor affinity group should not be a young professionals group.
It kind of makes me think about how we told people if they don't have a gala, don't start a gala. If you don't have a YP group, please don't start a YP group.
Don't start one. They don't want it. I promise. And so when you're thinking of donor affinity groups, I really want you to look into your organization and say, okay, what could a donor affinity group be? So at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we have some natural affinity groups that have just kind of risen to the top, if you will. So one is our group that we have for past board members. Guys, don't put your past board members out to pasture, okay? They have so much to offer. We've created a group where this group honestly gets to do all of, in my opinion, the most fun volunteering. They've put in their time. They've helped build our organization, and now they get to really do some impactful work with our mission. Another donor affinity group that I do want to spend a little bit of time on is women's groups.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was like, we're so excited about this. Okay. So women's affinity groups, guys. The reason I really think now is the time to start talking about women's affinity groups is this. Women are set to inherit more money in the next few years than they have ever had access to, especially millennial women. They are set to have not only inherit from their parents, but also from their spouses, or are more likely to. So millennial women are actually going to be one of the first generations to have one of the largest shares of wealth in this country and eventually will overtake men. Now, that's not going to happen for about the next 50 years. But it is coming. So it's time to talk about affinity groups. And also, let me just say as a woman, don't put pink on it and expect that that is a women's group.
Yeah.
Okay. Really, affinity groups need to be focused on not just dollars, but on volunteer opportunities, engagement, and community.
So I'm curious, like, what is something that you've been able to do with Empower, your
Mhm.
women's affinity group, that you think is like unique or different or outside the box?
You know, what I think has been so great about starting this group is I had definitely some ideas of what I wanted it to be, but the members have really helped shape it. And I think that's what's so amazing. So, again, the top reason people join affinity groups is they identify with a community, they want to learn more and go deeper with a cause
Hmm.
and give and make a bigger impact, but
Yeah.
maybe they don't have the time to sit on another more formal committee. And then they also want to get to know other people while making a
Yeah.
difference. They want to learn. And so, something that was really great that came from Empower Her, this group, is we've really made sure that it's not just about giving money,
Yeah.
it is about some networking and connection, but it is about volunteerism. At Big
Yeah.
Brothers Big Sisters, most people think the only way that they can give is through being a big. Well,
Yeah.
not everyone, unfortunately, can be a
Yeah.
big. And so this is a way for people to get involved and to volunteer in episodic ways.
Right.
So that's a great thing for you to do with a donor affinity group, or to maybe help this group create a special project for you.
I love it. I love it.
So one of the things, again, that this group did that I just loved is something you don't think about that kids need are Halloween costumes,
Hmm.
guys. Some women from this group got together, did a Halloween costume drive, and in 2 weeks, they just did it for 2 weeks this last year, they got 75 costumes. Those costumes were
Gosh.
out in the community, in our community, in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to make it even bigger and better because they saw a need
Right.
that wasn't being met for our community of bigs and littles.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so great about donor affinity groups is they can help you think outside the box and achieve things with your mission that maybe you just don't have the bandwidth to do on your own.
So I'm curious, Katie. I think a lot of people are going to ask the question, like, where do I begin if I want to build an affinity group?
Find a few leaders.
Hmm.
Honestly, find the 2 or 3 people that you know are your fans and supporters and ask their opinion.
Love
Sit
it.
down and brainstorm and just get it going. I mean, what I would say in nonprofit land, and I think we all do it, is it's analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And it's, I need to have everything figured out. We started Empower Her. I think I asked if I could maybe look at doing something like that in October, and we launched it in February.
Yeah.
And it's changed even in the first
Yeah.
year that we've done it. And so being flexible to that change. But my thing is look at past board members, maybe look at past event committee members who have been bought in with you, but maybe don't know what else their next path or their
Yeah.
next opportunity is. And collect those individuals. Like, you have them. Again, it doesn't have to be a young professionals group, but it can be past board members. It can be, I just repeated myself, sorry. It can be a subset of a population that wants to get together and do something. Maybe you have a bunch of people who were past volunteers but can't volunteer anymore. How can you get them engaged, and what are they looking for as far as engagement?
You know, one of the affinity groups in town that I'm absolutely obsessed with is how Wayside Waves does is it Per Gamma Bark or something?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Robin Roland, if I have butchered the name.
Member.
Are you a member of it?
Yes.
I mean, what a creative way to create an affinity group and have the theme be very much in line with your mission. And so I just love the idea of these unique opportunities to engage people. I also love the idea of, like, you may have somebody who has, you're right, served on this event committee for a couple years and they're looking to roll off. That doesn't mean they want to get away from the agency. They're just ready for something new. And how can we funnel people to new opportunities that keep them engaged and keep them invested in the mission? And I love the idea of the affinity group.
And I think it goes back to, again, experiences, right? Like, we need to be experiential in how people can, like, see, touch, and feel our missions and be closer to them in ways that are meaningful. Also, you know, I will say what's so important is making it a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be at everything. Like, there's no meetings, there's no, and understanding that people's schedules are going to flex, right? And so it's like, here are the opportunities. So this year it's like, as much as you can let people know in advance what's happening, like I did my calendar a whole year in advance. So when we kicked off this year, I had the calendar ready to go.
Yeah.
And then people could pick and choose and be like, oh, I really want to do this. It's all right if I miss that.
Yeah.
And doing them in different parts of town. Also, I think it's easy for us to be like, well, everything happens in downtown Kansas City. A lot happens down south too.
Right.
A lot happens up north. There's a lot going on up north that's
Yeah.
really cool. And so being flexible in meeting your donors and affinity groups where they're at and asking them what they want to do. I mean, surveys, I do love a good survey.
Yeah. I do love a good survey. And again, it comes back to the touch point of like sometimes you have to send a survey a couple times to get someone to fill it out.
So when starting an affinity group, I would say one of the key takeaways is talk to your top supporters. Really do look at female giving circles, though. I will say there's just so much research out there on them right now and how they're continuing to grow. And I mean, there's some really, really big ones in the country now called, especially one called Women Moving Millions. I mean, they're making huge impacts on their communities and on specific causes. So, and also find a project. That's a great way to start an affinity group is maybe there's a project that needs to get done in your organization, and how can you galvanize volunteers and expertise, and how can you bring in both that giving component, but also that volunteer component?
I love it. Well, because we know that when we bring donors and supporters into the space to see the mission like live, that creates such a bigger impact for them and makes them want to be more invested in the mission.
I will say that also there is something to curating those special experiences, kind of like what you said earlier with events, but doing them on a smaller scale for your donor affinity groups is what are some of those behind the scenes things that maybe you can't access that you as a group can go do together that impacts the mission, but also gets them knowing each other. People want to build community, and that's what donor affinity groups are really about, is it's creating sub communities within your larger organization. A lot of times people walk in and they're like, I feel lost in this organization. Where can I go to find people with like interests? And identifying those individuals. So you don't even have to start with monthly. I would also go back and say doing quarterly is great. Okay. It does not have to be a monthly opportunity. Starting out quarterly, being really clear on what the group is trying to do. So for Empower Her, for our Women's Giving Circle, the giving element takes a child off of our wait list, but it also goes into an emergency fund for our parents. So when they need something, we've got that. And those stories are what's so important to this group is a lot of them are as women understand and they want to help other women, right? And so how can you tie that to your mission? It doesn't always have to be women helping women, but it can be women coming together to achieve a goal that your organization is helping put forward.
I love it. I love it. Is there anything else you think our listeners need to hear before we wrap up?
I would just say that it really is a growing trend. It's one of the top trends for 2025, actually, is giving circles and affinity groups. Last year alone, they contributed $3.1 billion, and that's continuing to grow. And they, again, they don't need to just be young professional groups. They don't just need to have money tied to them. They can also have volunteer or service projects tied to them, which is what's so important. And then look inside and have one or two champions that you can talk to and just go and ask. Like if you have 5 people that show up to the first one, great. It all has to start somewhere. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Your donor affinity group isn't going to be built either.
One of the takeaways like from that is I saw someone post the other day, like, the best fundraisers, like they try it, and if they fail quickly and they move on. And so like even if it doesn't stick the first time, like keep going at it, keep figuring out, keep tweaking so that you get to a point where you can create a group like Empower Her that is continuously thriving and making a huge difference.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Giving Nook. I hope today's conversation gave you something, whether it's a fresh idea, a new perspective, or just a little more confidence in your fundraising journey. If you're loving what we're giving, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're feeling generous, a quick review helps more people like you find us. Want to keep the conversation going? Connect with me on LinkedIn or visit thephilanthropyplace.com, where I share fresh fundraising insights every other week. Here's to fundraising that feels good, works smarter, and changes lives. See you next time in The Giving Nook.